The medical bay of the astral convergence hummed with alien technology, but Alara paid it no mind. Her focus remained fixed on the massive crystalline eyes before her, each one larger than her entire body. Valthar, the ancient dragon lord of the Draconis Imperium, had ruled 17 star systems for 3 millennia. Now he sat before a human girl barely into her 20s, blind and desperate. "Your grand physician claims my condition is irreversible," Valthar rumbled, his voice resonating through the chamber like distant thunder. "Why should I trust the granddaughter of a mere colony doctor?" Alara smiled, pulling a small vial from her medical kit. The liquid inside shimmered with an ordinary blue tint. Nothing exotic, nothing alien. Just simple saline solution from Earth, enhanced with a careful mixture her grandmother had perfected over decades of practice in the outer colonies. "Because my grandmother taught me that sometimes the oldest solutions work best," Alara replied, her voice steady despite standing before a creature that could incinerate her with a thought. "Your physicians have tried every advanced treatment in the galaxy. Quantum regeneration, cellular reconstruction, neural pathway resequencing, but they missed something fundamental." Velthar's great head tilted, his blind eyes staring at nothing. "And what would that be, human?" "They forgot that eyes aren't just organs. They're ecosystems." Alara approached slowly, her scanner analyzing the dragon's ocular chemistry. "Your people evolved in environments with specific mineral balances. But you've spent centuries in artificial atmospheres, breathing recycled air, drinking processed water. Your tears lost their natural composition generations ago." The dragon's physician, a towering reptilian figure with emerald scales, hissed in displeasure. "Preposterous. We've analyzed every chemical component of Lord Valthar's condition." "You analyzed it through the lens of your technology," Alara countered, loading the drops into a specialized applicator. "My grandmother worked on Earth's colonies where humans faced similar issues. She discovered that sometimes restoration requires simplicity. These drops contain a precise balance of minerals, electrolytes, and trace elements that match your ancestral homeworld's natural spring waters. I synthesized it based on geological records from old Draconis." Valthar was silent for a long moment. Then, with a resigned sigh that sent warm air washing over Alara, he lowered his massive head. "Very well. I have nothing left to lose but darkness itself." Alara's hands didn't shake as she administered the drops. One by one, they fell onto those enormous crystalline surfaces, spreading across the dragon's eyes like morning dew on glass. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Valthar gasped, a sound so unexpected from such a powerful being that every creature in the medical bay froze. "Light," he whispered. "I see and light." Over the next 72 hours, the improvement was undeniable. Valthar's vision returned in stages. First shadows, then shapes, then colors, and finally the crystal clarity he'd lost decades ago. The Dragon Lord stood at the observation deck of his flagship, tears streaming down his scaled face as he beheld the stars he'd commanded blind for so long. "How did your kind discover this?" Valthar asked Alara, who stood beside him, impossibly small next to his bulk. "Humans have only been in space for 300 years, she explained, gazing at the starfield. "We're still learning, still struggling. But that means we remember what it's like to adapt, to find simple solutions to complex problems. My grandmother used to say that Earth's greatest export isn't technology or weapons, it's perspective." Valthar nodded slowly. "Your people are young, fragile. I have watched civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore, yet here you stand, having accomplished what the greatest minds of the Imperium could not. With respect, Lord Valthar, they could have. They just didn't think to look backward while reaching forward." The dragon turned his newly restored eyes to her. "What payment do you require, Alara of Earth?" "None. My grandmother taught me that healing isn't a transaction, it's a duty." 5 days after Valthar's sight returned, the sensors of the Draconis Imperium detected an anomaly. Ships were appearing at the edge of their space, not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. The war room fell into chaos as the count climbed. 7,000 vessels, 9,000, 12,000. When the final tally registered at 13,000 ships, the Imperium's generals prepared for the largest invasion in recorded history. But Valthar, seeing clearly for the first time in decades, recognized the signatures. His eyes widened in understanding, then wonder, then something approaching tears. "Stand down," he commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. These are not invaders. On screens across the flagship, the fleet revealed itself, ships from every corner of the Draconis Imperium and beyond. Dragons who had heard of Velthar's miraculous recovery. Wing lords who had suffered in silence with their own failing sight. Ancient serpents who had resigned themselves to darkness, believing restoration impossible. They had come seeking the humans' earth drops. Alara stood in the observation deck, watching the armada assemble, 13,000 vessels, each containing dragons who had heard a story too impossible to ignore, a story of a human girl with simple medicine accomplishing what galactic civilization could not. "They're all blind?" she asked quietly. Velthar nodded, his voice heavy with emotion. "My people's sight has been failing for generations. We attributed it to age, to evolution, to the price of power. We never considered that we had simply forgotten our roots." He looked down at her, genuine respect in his ancient eyes. "You didn't just cure one dragon, Alara. You've given my entire civilization hope." Alara felt the weight of those words. The magnitude of 13,000 desperate creatures seeking salvation in something as simple as water from Earth, mixed with knowledge passed from grandmother to granddaughter. "Then I'll need to send for supplies," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And I'm going to need a bigger medical bay." Valthar's laugh echoed through the chamber, deep, rich, and full of joy he hadn't felt in decades. "You shall have entire stations, human, fleets to guard you, whatever resources you require. I'll settle for good lab equipment and a communication line to Earth," Ilara replied with a slight smile. "And maybe you could send a message to my grandmother. Tell her that her old recipe just started a medical revolution." As the 13,000 ships moved into formation, waiting for their turn at salvation, Ilara realized her grandmother had been right all along. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to remember that even the mightiest dragons could be healed with something as simple as drops of water, mixed with knowledge, compassion, and the wisdom to look backward while the galaxy rushed forward. The age of human medicine among the stars had begun, not with a conquest, but with a cure.